Hey yo, what is up guys? It is me, Star Wars Coverage, and welcome back to another video. Now today, we are going to be discussing the 10 current Star Wars movies, and yes, the 2 added on include the anthology movies. I will be ranking them from my least favorite to my favorite, and so let's go ahead and get into the video. So at number 10, we have Star Wars Attack of the Clones, and this is the movie that is at a lot of Star Wars fans' bottom of the list for which one they would rank as the worst Star Wars movie. And it's the same for me. Just a lot of things didn't work in this movie. There was too much CGI, and it was almost, the romance just kind of threw it off a lot. The scenes with Anakin and Padme just really didn't work well into the movie, so that's the main reason that I would put it at number 10. At number 9, we have Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, also another movie that is usually at the bottom of people's lists, and it's this for the same reasons that most people would have it. Jar Jar Binks, terrible. Young Anakin can be hard to watch and get through, but, for what he was given, I think the child actor Jake Lloyd just did just fine, but, it was a little difficult to watch. Obviously, the best scene in the movie is the ending scene, Qui-Gon Obi-Wan versus Darth Maul, one of the best lightsaber fights in the history of Star Wars. But sadly, the other movies on this list are just too good, and that's why The Phantom Menace ends up at number 9. At number 8, we have Star Wars Episode 8, The Last Jedi. Now, one of the main reasons it's this low is because of my expectations going in. Coming off of The Force Awakens, I really expected this movie to be, just as good, if not better. To build off of what Force Awakens had built and what J.J. Abrams had built as a, sequel trilogy. But it just fell flat. I think Rian Johnson wanted to, throw the audience for a loop a lot, and I think that is what caused the downfall of this movie, and it almost, plagued the movie. He wanted to add in so many twists and turns and so many subplots, like the Canto Bight subplot, and it just made this movie not that enjoyable to watch. However, there were very good scenes and very memorable parts. Kylo Ren was very good in this movie, Adam Driver, and obviously the projection scene at the end with Luke Skywalker and Yoda returning was just fantastic. But sadly, it is at near the bottom of my list at number 8. So now we are getting into the movies that I enjoyed. I thoroughly enjoyed all of these movies throughout watching them, but some are just better than the others. So as I say that, coming in at number 7 will be Rogue One. Now, the very first anthology movie that was released in the Disney era and of all of Star Wars. Rogue One, it's a fun movie, and it brings back memories of the original trilogy with the time that it's set in, obviously. And it was a very nostalgic movie, but there's just I don't know if it's the fact that it's a brand new cast and just a bunch of new characters, or just the fact that it's a spin-off movie that just something doesn't click as much as the other ones. I don't know if it's the loss of lightsabers, like lightsaber fights, other than, the ending with Darth Vader, which I will say is my favorite Star Wars scene ever, so, it is a little bit hard to put this one so low, but the other ones, in my opinion, are just too good to place, this one higher than them, and that's why this one falls in at number 7. Coming in at number 6, we have Star Wars Episode 6, Return of the Jedi. This one was extremely hard for me to place it this low because I really do love this movie, but the other ones are just, like I said before, are just a little bit better that they edge them out, and, I had to place this one at number 6 because the main reason has to be, the Ewoks, and, the Ewoks just kind of bring this movie down a little bit, but other than that, I think this is a very enjoyable movie, and especially that, that final lightsaber scene and the redemption of Darth Vader is, one of the more memorable parts of Star Wars, obviously, with Anakin Skywalker returning to the light side, breaking off from the dark, and really showing his true hero form to Luke. However, it's just, there's something, the other ones above it are just a little tiny bit better for me, so that's why this one comes in at number 6. Coming in at number 5 is Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. This is easily one of, it is not easily one of, it is the best of the prequel trilogy. Great lightsaber fights throughout, with General Grievous versus Kenobi, Anakin versus Obi-Wan, obviously, and then you got Emperor Palpatine versus Yoda, and also Emperor Palpatine versus Mace Windu, and it's just a great movie. And Count Dooku towards the beginning of the film, it's just a fun movie overall. But I think it's just like I said, I'm gonna keep saying this. The other ones are just a little bit better, and I think if it didn't have so much CGI, maybe it would be a bit higher. There were some parts of the movie that did feel a little slow, and the pacing was a bit off. But other than that, a very enjoyable movie, and obviously the best of the prequel trilogy. But sadly, it does fall in at number 5. But the top 4 are very, very close, and it's going to cause some controversy throughout because one of these movies that has not been named is quite low for most people. But here we go, is number 4. So coming in at number 4, we have Solo, A Star Wars Story. A lot of people disliked this movie. However, I had, one of the best times I've ever had watching a movie, honestly, in a theater. It was so upbeat, and the tone was so, light, and it was just so fun to watch. Alden Ehrenreich blew me away with his performance. I did not expect him to do as good as he did. Donald Glover, fantastic as Lando Calrissian. Worst part of the movie, L337. Easily, I couldn't stand the droid as many people could, but other than that, it was, very enjoyable movie, and I could easily see myself rewatching this movie multiple times, and that's why it falls in at number 4. So coming in at number 3, we have Star Wars The Force Awakens, the movie that revived Star Wars. Came out in 2015. I was 12 years old, and, it was kind of prime time. I was already a fan of Star Wars for about 7 years now, but this was the first Star Wars movie I've ever seen in a theater, and that was just, it was unlike any experience I've ever had, and it was quite possibly one of the better experiences of my life. And I think that's one of the reasons it's up there, is because it was the first movie I'd seen in the theater. But other than that, it's a lot of people criticize it for how similar it is to Episode 4, to the original trilogy, but I think that's what makes it great. It is so similar, and it just brings you that joy that the original trilogy brings, all while adding in some new stuff. You got the brand new characters who are all great in their own respective ways, and it brings the original trilogy back. We don't see that much of Luke. We hold that off until Episode 8, but Harrison Ford once again kills it as Han Solo, just as good as he is back whenever he was, in his 30s playing it. And this movie, just so enjoyable, and it's just so fun, and it's one of the better Star Wars movies in my opinion, and that's why it comes in at number 3. So coming in at number 2, we have the first Star Wars, or better known as now as Star Wars A New Hope, the movie that started it all, and the movie that brought us this fantastic galaxy and universe of characters and fun experiences throughout. And without it, we wouldn't be here talking about this. I wouldn't be, have this YouTube channel. But hey, I love this movie. It's hard to find someone who doesn't love this movie. It's just it's all the right, it hits all the right buttons, and it's just so, it's the foundation for what would later, become one of the biggest film franchises in the history of cinema. And I don't have to say much about why I like this film. Han Solo's great, Luke Skywalker, Ben Kenobi, and it's just Darth Vader. It just sets the sword in stone for why Star Wars would become such a huge thing. I really don't think I have to do much talking. But, however, the final movie does edge it out just a little bit. And I think you all know, I think a lot of people would agree with my number 1 pick, which is Star Wars Episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back. Now, this is a lot of people's number 1, and it's my number 1 as well. Main reasons is, Yoda. You got Yoda in, who's, one of the most memorable characters in Star Wars, and, he does have some comedy in there as well, and he's a very lighthearted character and a very fun character to watch. And then you got Darth Vader, the reveal of Luke Skywalker, which just adds on to it. And, there's just so many great things about this movie. You got Lando, and you got Han getting frozen in carbonite, and then you got Leia and Han finally falling in love with each other, and it all falls into place, and it's the perfect sequel in my opinion, and I don't think that it'll ever be beat as the best Star Wars movie. I really don't, and it's probably, for me, it easily is the most rewatchable movie in the franchise, so that is why it falls in at number 1. So if you've made it this far, thank you so much for watching the whole way through. I love you no matter what, I love my fans no matter what, but you guys are really something special for sticking around. Now, please tell me down below in the comments, What is your list of Star Wars movies from least favorite to favorite? I'd love to see them in the comments. I'd love to get an active discussion going, and I'd love to get some fan interaction and see how similar your guys' is to mine, and also what type of videos do you want to see in the future? What do you want my next video to be? This has been Star Wars Coverage, and may the Force be with you.